Thank you very much. Please be seated. Honorable Foucault.
B873.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, from 1st to 7th July 2022, a total of 2,240 cases of COVID-19 were reported. From 8th to 14th July 2022, a total of 3,717 cases was reported. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard...
Can you please get your mic closer? Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, just your mic. Not your mask.
Okay.
Not your mask. The mic.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to hospitalization, all admitted patients suffering from COVID-19 in regional hospitals are directed to the new ENT hospital for appropriate management. In reply to part 1A1 of the question, 45 patients were admitted from 1st to 8th July and 58 patients from 9th to 14th July. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A2 of the question, 3 patients have passed away as a consequence of COVID-19 from 1st to 7th July, and there has been no reported case of death directly related to COVID-19 during the week of 8th to 14th July 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part B of the question, the PCR sequential analysis is carried out on positive cases, since strain monitoring is still ongoing in the country. The last sequencing results on 118 samples collected between 29th May to 23rd June 2022 were as follows: BA1 0, BA2 41, BA4 34, BA5 31, and BE1 12. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Dans l'éventualité que le nombre d'hospitalisations et de décès augmente davantage et que la situation se dégrade, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire quelles seront ses recommandations au High Level Committee par rapport aux restrictions sanitaires?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we are monitoring the situation, obviously, with the variant that now is more in the population, and we know that these variants, they are more infectious but less infective. And if we follow what is the trend in other countries around the world where there is a surge of cases, but that also depends upon the vaccination status and the variant that is already circulating in the population. Obviously, we will take measures which is appropriate. But as for the time being, we know that there would be cases, especially during this winter season, but is that having an impact on death or in cases that need hospitalization? So this will be followed, and obviously, if any recommendation from the public health will come, we'll definitely make provision for.
L'honorable ministre, peut-il nous dire quels sont les soins actuellement administrés à ceux qui sont hospitalisés?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the treatment modalities is if patients who are asymptomatic, they are given treatment based on their symptoms, but otherwise, if treatment of symptomatic, it is based upon the protocol that is already established, and I think that in the past I've already tabled the protocol of treatment that has remained unchanged since the beginning that we are treating the patients of COVID-19.
Dr. Nobelemia, please.
Thank you. Will the Honourable Minister, in view of the actual prevailing variant in the country, where there is a surge in the number of cases, the number of people who are doing the home self-test kit has been on the increase. And surely there has been many of them who have been tested positive without actually attending the public sector and thereby evading the number of cases that is truly positive, that are truly positive in the country. Will the minister consider a system whereby people who are tested positive can actually inform the ministry, at least for the prevailing conditions in the country?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, COVID-19 is a notifiable disease as per the Public Health Act. So anybody who's been tested positive at home, especially by the self-testing kit, they should report to a health center to get the test confirmed, or they should phone the 8924 to send the information over there so that these all can be compiled by the public health unit of the ministry.
Honorable Beda, you still have one?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. May I ask the Honourable Minister, what is the capacity of the ENT hospital, and whether we have reached capacity and some patients, old age ones, are requested to go home to be treated at home?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, patients transferred to ENT hospitals are those who require admission or those who are in a state where they should be admitted for follow-up. For the last 2 or 3 months, since admissions have gone down drastically, in the different hospitals where we were having set up special wards for COVID-19 patients, we have closed all these wards. So due to that limited number of admissions, all patients are transferred to ENT hospital. At present, there are some 40 patients that are admitted at ENT hospital, and that patients, they are all the admissions, one being admitted at ENT. In the future, if ever the number of cases keep on rising, the wards in the different hospitals will be reopened again. So that would be the long-term planning for in case we are going to have more cases, admissions for COVID-19, they will be catered at the hospital.
Thank you very much. Next question, Honorable Ganga Passer.
B874.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the Audit Committee at my ministry was constituted and appointed on the 11th of December 2020 with the following terms of reference. A, to assist the accounting officer in maintaining sound control systems and in promoting good governance. B, to oversee compliance with financial, administrative and procurement regulations. And C, to ensure that the criticism and weaknesses level against the Ministry by the Director of Audit, Public Accounts Committee and the Internal Control Unit are reduced progressively. The Audit Committee was fully operational. However, given that there were no substantive issues which had been raised in the previous audit reports and upon recommendations of the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance in January 2022, the committee was deferred for the financial year 2022-2023. The Audit Committee is currently working on an action plan which will enable the scrutiny of all risk areas, including for work permit. Mr. Speaker, sir, the grant of work permits occurs within a strict framework of rules, policies, and good governance. In this regard, all applications for work permit have to be made in accordance with the guidelines which are prescribed under this very provision. Accordingly, both the requirements for compliance with the guidelines and the exercise of the discretionary power of the Minister have to be read in conjunction. Reading either in isolation or invariably is invariably a distorted interpretation of the provision of the law. I would further wish to apprise the House that in 2019, following the advice from the Attorney General Office, I have delegated the power for the renewal of work permits to the Permanent Secretary of my ministry. Therefore, the allusion being made by the Honourable Member that the Minister retains the sole power for granting work permits is not accurate.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Will the Minister inform the House, if ever he has ever used his absolute discretion to grant or refuse a work permit so far? If the minister does not have the information now, he may table same afterwards.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I have used my discretion to grant or refuse a work permit in the past.
Thank you.
Honorable Boulay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Can the Minister be kind enough to inform the House as to the number of recruitment agencies which are operating?
I would invite the honourable member to come with a specific question.
Yes, next supplementary.
Will the minister, in the name of transparency and to dispel all doubts and suspicions regarding abuse of power or corrupt practices, consider amending Section 4.1 of the Non-Citizens Employment Restriction Act and set up an independent committee to look after and handle applications for work permits for non-citizens?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, the process is quite it's well structured, and the applications are dealt with according to the guideline in place. There are several layers before an application is determined. So, consideration for amending the Non-Citizen Restriction Employment Act is not envisageable at the moment. I will let the committee come with, audit committee come with proper recommendations, and in the light of these recommendations, necessary action will be taken.
Last question.
Mr. Honorable Minister, there are many companies, owners of companies, they feel aggrieved very often that their application, which sometimes they fulfill all requirements, notwithstanding, they find that the applications are rejected. Can you look into the matter?
Yes, there are several guidelines which have to be followed. Sometimes the information that we get before processing an application may be that we don't have all the information, or they have not fulfilled all the criteria.
Thank you. Honorable.
B875.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, medical and health officers, senior medical and health officers of the public sector registered as general practitioner undergo postgraduate studies either through recognized medical universities abroad or in Mauritius through joint collaborations with other universities under a memorandum of understanding jointly with the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders. Since year 1995, for various diploma courses and specialization programs, they were conducted through collaboration with University of Bordeaux. 79 participants at that time, including 71 Mauritians, had been trained in 12 different fields of specialization, namely the anesthesia, internal medicine, pediatrics, orthopedic surgery, legal medicine, cardiology, and psychiatry, to mention a few. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm informed that the Parlement project, Projet Inter-État de développement de l'anesthésie-réanimation et médecine d'urgence dans l'océan Indien, was a one-off regional project which was conducted from 1999 to 2003. The Parlement project was a collaboration between the governments of France and Mauritius. The Parlement project ended with the completion of the training in 2003. Therefore, no further postgraduate training can be considered under Parlement project. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as regard postgraduate training of medical and health officers, senior medical and health officers, my ministry reactivated the policy to provide training for medical and health officers, irrespective of whether they have qualified from the University of Mauritius or any other recognized medical institution. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in 2020, the University of Mauritius launched the new Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences and it was agreed that the University of Mauritius will go ahead with an accord de principe between all stakeholders, namely my ministry, the University of Mauritius, and the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology. Since early 2021, a survey was conducted on human resources for future training needs in the context of the COVID-19 to identify specialty fields in order of priority. My ministry will shortly be proceeding on the signature of an accord cadre de coopération, a collaboration between my ministry, the University of Mauritius, the University of Bordeaux, the Centre hospitalier universitaire de Bordeaux, the University of Réunion, and Centre hospitalier universitaire de la Réunion, and the French Embassy in Mauritius to provide postgraduate courses to our doctors. In the first instance, my ministry is envisaging to provide specialization training in the field of radiology and anesthesia, followed by emergency medicine, nephrology, and neurology. Some 10 candidates will be recruited in each field of specialization. The final draft of the accord cadre is awaited from the French side, and subsequently necessary clearances will be sought from the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Ministry of Education, and the document will be sent to the State Law Office for the final legal vetting. Thank you.
Honorable Lavasson.
Can the Minister inform the House about the recruitment procedures for candidates who wish to undergo a specialization?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, procedures will be made through an expression of interest. The candidates will be selected by a representative of Université de Bordeaux in the concerned field of specialization. So,
And the Honorable Minister inform the House whether the candidate have to bear the cost for the specialization course.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, no. In fact, all the costs will be borne by the Ministry of Health.
Honorable Mayor, Dr. Mayor.
Thank you. The Minister is surely aware of the discontent of nearly 10 doctors that was selected by his ministry to undergo training in emergency medicine through the CHU de Belle-Pierre La Réunion, attached to Université de Bordeaux. It does appear that there has been some problem arising as to their recognition as emergency physician. May I ask the Honourable Minister whether necessary action are being taken so that these doctors be recognized as emergency physicians? Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Honourable Member should be updated by the information that the University of Réunion has already been sent for gazetting, so that this university, once it is recognized, the degree will be recognized by the Medical Council. This has been done long back.
Thank you. Honorable Dulab.
B876.
Minister.
Yes, Mr.
Take your time. Take your time.
So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, smoking is injurious to health. A series of measures have been put in place since many years to discourage and reduce the consumption of cigarettes among the population. In order to curb down cigarette consumption, in June this year, the government came up with a new public health restrictions on tobacco products, Regulations 2022. The previous regulations have been amended to fully comply with the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control and the protocol to eliminate illicit trade in tobacco products to improve public health by limiting the health harms caused by tobacco and nicotine use. The purpose of the new regulations, among others, is to first restrict the use, sale, importation, manufacture, and distribution of tobacco products. Second, restriction sale of tobacco products to minors. That is, no new tobacco vendors will be allowed to operate within a radius of 200 meters of an educational institution and sports and leisure facilities. Third, implement the concept of plain packaging of tobacco products in terms of labeling and package design. It's worth highlighting that Mauritius will be among the few countries in the world which will implement the concept of plain packaging. And lastly, display new sets of pictorial health warnings on the packaging of all tobacco products. For example, cigars, cigarillos, which was only applicable to cigarettes in the past. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, increasing tobacco taxes and prices are considered as the single most effective, cost-effective tobacco control intervention, and it is a critical component of a comprehensive tobacco control strategy. In the budget 2022-2023, the increase by 10% is still one step further, limiting accessibility of tobacco products in the population, including the youth. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, another measure undertaken by my ministry to discourage smoking among the population is the setting up of tobacco cessation clinics around the island. Currently, there are 8 fully functional tobacco cessation clinics in Mauritius, including one in Rodrigues, and the latest one was inaugurated last year in the context of World No Tobacco Day 2021. My ministry has also conducted the training of 10 community physicians and 8 nursing officers in tobacco cessation therapy in 2021, and this training program will be extended to other health professionals. 14 medical and paramedical staff have been trained over the island concerning tobacco cessation practices and guidelines on 14 July 2022. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, one of the strategies to curb cigarette consumption among the population is to intensify mass media campaigns. In this context, at least 5 sets of TV and radio programs on tobacco have been broadcasted since 2021. Online videos on smoking were also released during the COVID-19 period to sensitize the population about its adverse effect on human health. My ministry is currently working on additional health information and education communication materials on targeting the youth and the population at large on tobacco cessation services. Furthermore, my ministry is also engaged in sensitization campaigns and regular health talks organized in the community, work sites, and secondary schools to raise awareness on the damage caused to our health by tobacco intake. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, with regard to Part B of the question, I wish to inform the House that the National Action Plan for Tobacco Control 2022-2026 is in line with Goal 3 of the United Nations resolution entitled Transforming Our World. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which targets a 30% reduction in prevalence of current tobacco use in persons aged 15 years and above by 2025. The National Action Plan on Tobacco Control 2022-2026 has been devised to enumerate forthcoming strategies that could enhance the actual position Mauritius holds as a typical anti-tobacco lobbying country. The main objectives of the action plan are to tackle urgently the scourge of tobacco epidemic in youth, strongly support the implementation of plain packaging in Mauritius as a signatory of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, lay emphasis on the importance of introduction of a new set of pictorial warnings to inform the public of the ill effects of tobacco and include the community in decision-making and in the planning of policies, among others. Moreover, the key features included in the action plan relate to 4 main domains, namely, first, championing the cause of anti-tobacco fight in Mauritius. Second, reducing consumption of tobacco products. Third, reducing environment tobacco smoke. And fourth, revising existing legislative frameworks and anti-tobacco policing. The action plan is in strict alignment with the new public health restrictions on tobacco products, Regulation 2022, to avoid discrepancies in policy formulation and implementation.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. In his reply to Part A of the question, the Honourable Minister mentioned the concept of clean packaging. Can we thus have from the Minister details as to where matters stand concerning the introduction of plain packaging in regards to cigarette and when this measure will be enforced?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the regulations, the Public Health Regulation 2008 was revoked and the new regulation of 222 are being enforced since 10th June 2022. One of the main purposes of the new regulation is to implement the concept of plain packaging of tobacco products in terms of labeling, package design, and the new set of pictorial health warnings. So tobacco importers will have till 31st December 2022 to implement plain packaging for all tobacco products imported into Mauritius. And an additional of 2 months has been given for the depletion of all stock of tobacco products at retail. So therefore, importers will have to fully comply with plain packaging by 1st March 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. In his reply again to Part A of the question, the Honourable Minister mentioned about the intensification of mass media campaigns. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House as to the yearly budget dedicated and spent on these campaigns?
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. From January to December 2020, during COVID-19 pandemic, 175 secondary schools have been visited and some 30,990 students of grades 7, 9, and 12 attended health talk sessions. For the period January to December 2020, the 26,882 people attended health talks. For the period February to June 2022, 21,777 students of grade 7, 9, and 12 were sensitized against tobacco use. And for the period February to June 2022, 14,260 people within the community and worksite have been sensitized against tobacco. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as for the budget, as per the National Action Plan that I have, the information that I have, a budget of 3.3 million has been voted for prevention programs on a 5-year span. Yeah.
Last question.
Mr. Speaker, sir, can the Honourable Minister inform the House on how the National Action Plan on Tobacco Control 2020-2026 will be monitored? Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, my minister has set up a steering committee to monitor the implementation of the National Action Plan for Tobacco Control 2022-2026. The committee will be chaired by the Senior Chief Executive of my ministry and will comprise representatives from various ministries and organizations as well as NGOs.
I'll squeeze one last question.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Another question is mainly with regard to cigarettes and the National Action Plan for Tobacco Control. However, can the Honourable Minister provide information to the House with regards to the regulations concerning the e-cigarette in Mauritius? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Now, there are different types of e-cigarettes in use, also known as electronic nicotine delivery systems, and sometimes electronic non-nicotine delivery systems. And these systems heat a liquid to create aerosols that are inhaled by the user. So they are called e-liquids, or may not contain nicotine, but also typically contain additives, flavors, and chemicals that can be toxic to people's health. So in the regulation, it also includes products marketed or known as electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes, vapes, e-cigars, e-pipes, and e-shisha. So all has been included into the regulations of June 2022.
Thank you. Next question.
B877.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, my ministry signed a memorandum of understanding for referral of patients with 14 local private health institutions on 2nd June 2022. Following the signing ceremony, my ministry has requested all 14 local private health institutions to submit detailed proposals on the specialty and subspecialty services which they provide, along with cost estimate for the proposed treatment. My ministry is awaiting receipt of the detailed proposals to operationalize the scheme. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, since 2001, my ministry has been providing financial assistance to the tune of 200,000 rupees at that time under the Overseas Treatment Scheme to patients suffering from diseases which are not operable in Mauritius. These specialties for which patients are sent for overseas treatment concern but are not limited to the following: ophthalmology, that is retinoblastoma, neurosurgery, aneurysm, arteriovenous malformation, pituitary adenoma, and tumors inoperable locally in Mauritius. Cardiology, complicated cases mostly for newborns with severe congenital abnormalities and complicated cardiac cases. Orthopedic surgery, osteosarcoma, and complicated cases that are not operable in Mauritius. ENT, cochlear implant, oncology, leukemia, and bone marrow transplant, transplantation, renal transplant, lung transplant, and liver transplant. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in November 2011, the amount of financial assistance for overseas treatment was revised to 500,000. Furthermore, in the budget 2014, an amount of 800,000 rupees was approved for complex cases to be treated abroad. 3 costly and complex cases were identified, namely leukemia requiring bone marrow transplant, osteosarcoma, and cochlear implant. These, furthermore, in the budget 2022-2023, an additional provision of 200,000 rupees was provided for patients requiring stretchers during overseas treatment for cases of neurosurgery and bone marrow transplant. The treatment of these conditions are not available in Mauritius, both in the private and in the public sector, given the complexities involved to manage these cases in terms of expertise, know-how, equipment, and other logistics. This government, through the new scheme, will give the opportunity for local private health institutions to manage these cases for the very first time in Mauritius, with the support of both local and foreign medical experts. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, it all started years back in 1995. At that time, maybe we were watching TV when Professor Hassan Rafa came to Mauritius along with Dr. Ganesh did the first operation, I was still secondary student. Dr. Omiya, I don't know whether he was already working in the public sector. So at that time, we started the open heart surgery, which was carried out in the public sector. This knowledge sharing process has paved the way for the adoption of a culture of continuing medical progress, which is today evident both in terms of expert skills and available medical equipment. The public health sector is now equipped with the latest technology in many areas of medicine, for example, laparoscopic surgery, which is minimally invasive as well as state-of-the-art medical care, which is being provided in neonatal and pediatric medicine. It's clear that the government is not only concerned with the development of the public health sector, but also wants to rope in the private health sector. This is the very aim of this collaboration, that is to give the opportunity to local private health institutions to offer medical services that are not available in Mauritius, and also to promote these medical services in the region where we envisage to uphold our island as a medical hub. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part B of the question, I wish to inform the House that Mauritian patients requiring such advanced treatment in different specialty and subspecialty areas are limited in number, and as such, medical doctors who choose to work in Mauritius do not opt for training in these areas. In addition, employment of such trained personnel is not cost-effective given the low number of patients in each specialty and subspecialty. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, through this scheme, local private health institutions are being encouraged to enhance their health infrastructure and services, as well as enlist the services of international experts in the different subspecialties to provide these services in their institutions. This would in turn enable capacity building of medical and paramedical staff and succession planning, in turn leading to sustainable employment in the local medical and paramedical sector. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in the budget speech 2021-2022, the incoming eligibility criteria for households was increased from 50,000 rupees to 100,000 rupees, whereby opening up the overseas treatment scheme to additional Mauritian families. In addition, following a stabilization in the COVID-19 sanitary situation, it is expected that the expenses related to overseas treatment will soar up again in 2022. With the coming into operation of this new scheme, it is expected that patients due for treatment abroad would be able to benefit the same in our local private sector. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, this scheme will also bring an end to the hassle that a patient and his family is put into when a close one has to proceed overseas for treatment. As my colleagues are aware, a lack of family and social support can have a detrimental effect on the recovery process. Through this scheme, treatment of patients would be done locally, and this would allow patients to be close to their family members, thereby enhancing the aftercare process. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I listened to the Honorable Minister, very exhaustive reply. And he did mention that in certain specific cases, complex cases, it is not economically feasible for them to be done in the public sector. Needless to remind him that it's not the money that counts, but the training of our junior doctors and specialists as well should matter. If I just could remind him of Professor Paddy Dewan, who has been coming here to do complex surgery in the pediatric field. Anyway, my question is, 15 million rupees have been earmarked for this item in the current budget estimate. Does the minister have any substantiate details of which specialties this sum is to be used?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, this budget is earmarked based on the budget that was allocated for the overseas treatment scheme. We all understand, we know that this is a slow process. It's not going to pick up overnight because we have to give time for the private clinics to get the foreign experts, to have certain collaboration with foreign hospitals, universities to start this project. But at least this is the start. This is the first time that the Ministry of Health and the private sector, that is public and private partnership, to encourage training, capacity building of the local health sector, that is the private clinics, with the doctors, with the nursing officers, to be trained, so that in the future, are we going to keep on investing more money for the for patients that are not operable in Mauritius to send them abroad? Or do we want to have that capacity building in Mauritius as we started with the open heart surgery, so that gradually we know that all operations won't be able to, we won't be able to do all the operations in Mauritius, but at least this is the startup, so that we gradually, we can stepwise proceed with the private clinics doing the operations in Mauritius. And this fund will be, obviously, instead of paying foreign hospitals, this sum will be used to pay our local clinics to proceed with the operations.
Give him the mic.
Thank you. I think, and I hope this is the beginning of a very long journey that will help the private, both the public and the private sectors, for the benefit and welfare of patients who suffer complex conditions. My question to the Minister is, in the light of assistance to patients referred for treatment in local private institutions, is his ministry, for the time being, contemplating outsourcing PET scan to the new Eagle Cancer Center until and so forth the one to be installed at Solferino is up and functioning?
Sir, Deputy Speaker, sir, it all depends upon the oncologist working at the new cancer center. So if this is a mandatory test that we need to, we need to do this test for diagnostic or for therapeutic reason, and this test, if ever we were supposed to send some patients abroad to do these tests, obviously this will be a open bidding. I believe this is the word that is being used, that if that will cost us less and with the quality that we will get, obviously we are going to send patients. But so far, as per my knowledge, I don't know exactly whether we are sending patients over there. So far, to my knowledge, this is not the case for the time being.
Yes, thank you. I have understood from the Honourable Minister's reply that in going to local private health institutions, it's all a question of expertise and know-how not being available in the public sector. And he mentioned that it is not cost-effective for those specialties for the public sector. Can I ask him, how does he reconcile with the fact that if it is not cost-effective for the public sector, with a much larger client base, how does he expect it to be cost-effective for the private sector with a smaller client base? Because in the process, it is the patient that somehow will be victimized.
Not victimized, sorry.
Not victimized, but disadvantaged or whatever.
No. So probably it's good that I explain. Thank you, Honourable Member, to give me that opportunity to explain this process. For example, we are sending any case, neurosurgery case for some operation in India, in a hospital, and we can borrow the expertise, that doctor and the nursing officer. They can come to Mauritius. And instead of doing one operation, for example, they do two operations. They do reach Mauritius in the morning, the next day they do the operation, and they leave the third day. If this can be done, instead of sending the patient, the relatives, having all the hassles that this patient have to stay outside, and that way you borrow the expertise, you bring it to Mauritius, you train your staff gradually, and gradually, maybe with time, we don't need that expert. Maybe the Mauritian counterpart will be doing the surgery. So it's a question of giving that opportunity to the private sector to start building on these operations. If I'll give you the numbers, so in the year 2018, we sent 321 patients who proceeded for overseas treatment for 68.5 million. 2019, 335 patients. And that tuned up to around 82 millions. And that will keep on increasing. 2020, 176 patients, 63 million rupees. 2021, 173 patients, and that is 69 million rupees. So that will keep on increasing. So do we want at least some of these surgeries, treatment to be available locally? So if that can be done by the private clinics, having the experts coming to Mauritius, and these patients can be directed there. So instead of the government of Mauritius, the Ministry of Health, paying all from air tickets to stretchers, to accommodation, everything. So all that, we can have it in Mauritius, and only the expert coming. It will be obviously a win-win situation for the private clinics. That is the vision of how we're going to proceed.
Next question.
B878. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in the year 2016, my ministry carried out a geotechnical assessment for the new cancer hospital at Solferino through a private specialized agency, MS GeoCrust. As per the report, the site was found suitable for the construction of the cancer hospital from geotechnical perspective. Based on the comments and the recommendations regarding foundations and other issues related to the geotechnical aspects of the projects, the Hospital Services Consultancy Corporation, that is HSCC India, the consultant and the contractor, Swadeshi Civil Infrastructure Private Limited, have designed the project. I'm informed that the contractor also enlisted the services of Professor Sadal, geomorphologist, to conduct a preliminary study on underground water levels at site of the cancer hospital in the year 2020. According to the preliminary study, there was a constant and continuous flux of underground water below the surface of the site, and the groundwater was not captured. That is, that if the groundwater was not captured, there is a risk of overflow. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in light of the recommendation made by the geomorphologist and the project consultant, in order to ensure that the groundwater level is contained, my ministry went along recommendations to construct a borehole next to the new cancer building. The construction will be carried out by the contractor Swadeshi Civil Infrastructure Private Limited. Application for the authorization to drill from the Central Water Authority has already been made, and same is awaited. Following the construction of the borehole, same will be handed over to the CWA for management. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I also wish to inform the House that an official mission was carried out by the International Atomic Energy Agency in April 2022 with regard to expanding radiotherapy and nuclear medicine services in Mauritius. The IAEA has agreed to share the cost of one PET and CT scan to be installed at the new cancer center. As per the end of mission report of the IAEA, some issues have been noted in the new cancer center, including high humidity in the underground water level, certain infrastructural modification required for the installation of the PET scan. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the consultant is working on the modifications requested by the IAEA, and the former will liaise with the supplier, and turnkey jobs will be carried out accordingly. With regard to the humidity issue, I'm informed that same will be controlled in the specialized equipment room by dedicated air conditioning, which includes components of dehumidification, contrary to what during the last parliamentary sitting, the Honorable Omia stated that he suggested that there were serious shortcomings of water overflow and concerning the installation of the PET scan. So all those have already been taken on board. Thank you, Mr.
No supplementary, thank you.
Yes, I've understood from the Honourable Minister's reply that in 2015 a geological study was done, but subsequently the services of Mr. Prem Sadal has had to be sought in order to resolve a problem which warrants the construction of a borehole in order to siphon the water so that there is no problem. So can I ask the Honourable Minister whether he's telling the House that there was a problem, and if so, the cost of the borehole and all ancillaries associated thereto, is it going to be passed on to those who have faulted, or is it government that is going to foot the bill?
No, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. So the first, specialized agency that have conducted that geotechnical assessment. So it has already given the report that this site, we can construct the hospital over there. Now, the consultant and that is the HSCC and the contractor, they again engage into another, having a different, they contract out the services of Professor Sadal, who also came up with a report. So the HSCC has done a recommendation of borehole, and what the contractor is doing is that we need to have a borehole for the, to get out these water over there. So that's what is my understanding. I'm not an engineer to understand all that, but that has been already catered for, and I believe that this is the, and that area, the whole area, we do have that water table, I call it like that, in that area, and you need to get that borehole so that you can get out these water.
Thank you. Can I know, since that project is already very late, that problem of a borehole that we've just mentioned, is it going to make the project even more late? And what extra cost is this going to cost?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the project is late because of COVID-19. The COVID-19 has been there, and all the borders were closed, foreign workers did not attend, all the, that has to be imported, the materials, all that delayed. But the project now, it is at a state of the infrastructure, or project is nearly completed, and will be handed over shortly. In the next month, that project, the infrastructure will be ready. Now it's a question of highly specialized equipment that will be installed by the beginning of next year. That also will be completed with the training, because these are specialized equipment. You have to get the training, and to get the training, you should know which equipment you are buying. And that equipment, once we know that this award has been given to, and we are purchasing these equipment, obviously that training will follow. So the question of delay is not there. And for the question of the borehole, this has been undertaken by the contractor himself. He's doing that borehole, but I don't have whether there is an additional cost for that, but I will definitely give that information. I will table that information.
Thank you. Next question, please.
B879.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Municipal City Council of Port Louis that the Carrier Bayard swimming pool at Clanverde was closed to the public on the 18th of August 2021 for renovation work. I'm informed that the renovation of the swimming pool consists of two phases as follows. The first phase comprised complete renovation of the swimming pool building, including painting, plumbing, electrical work, and upgrading of the yard. The work has been completed on the 8th of April 2022. The second phase comprised repair of the leakage to the roof of the building. The work have started on the 18th of July 2022 and the expected date of completion is the 1st of August 22. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that the reopening of the swimming pool is scheduled 2 weeks after completion of the second phase of renovation work, that is by mid-August 2022.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Vice Prime Minister, can you please inform the House why, despite the swimming pool being closed for nearly 1 year, only 2 weeks ago tender was launched for the repairs of the roof, iron sheet roof?
I mean, initially, the work was supposed to take care of the roof as well. But what happened after most of the work was completed in the first phase, we did a site visit there. And we noticed that there was still leakage in the roof. That's why we had the second phase started to sort out the roof problem.
Honourable Vice Prime Minister, can we know if it is the same contractor and the cost of the repairs?
It's a different contractor. The first contractor was SMS Contracting, which the cost of the work was about 8.195 million rupees, 8.1 million rupees. And for the repairs of the roof, it was Jazz Supply Limited for 845,000 rupees.
Next question.
B880.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, with your permission, I'll reply to this parliamentary question. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm informed that the Road Traffic Construction and Use of Vehicles Regulation 2010 already makes provision for deterring illegal parking of vehicles near bus stops and laybys under Section 72, subsection 2C of the Road Traffic Regulation 2010, which stipulates that no person shall cause or permit any motor vehicle to be parked within a distance of 10 meters from a bus stop, 12 meters before and 8 meters after the bus signpost, and 20 meters opposite the restricted length. In addition, Section 72(2)G of the Road Traffic Regulation 2010 stipulates that no person shall cause or permit any motor vehicle to be parked on the side of a road where there is a continuous longitudinal white line prohibiting overtaking of a vehicle. Any person contravening these regulations shall commit an offence and shall, on conviction, be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 rupees. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm informed that at the location of these bus laybys, there are continuous white line which prohibits parking and overtaking of vehicles on the opposite side of the road. In this respect, the Ministry has already requested the police and the National Land Transport Authority to undertake rigorous enforcement thereof in accordance with Road Traffic Construction and Use of Vehicle Regulation 2010. Thank you.
Being given, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that the issue relates to narrowness of classified roads such as Abdul Razak Mohamed, Saint-François, Magon, etc. May I request the Honourable Minister if the TMRSU to install new signage and road marking in this region, or a site visit is welcome?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'll surely convey this request from the Honourable Member to the Substantive Minister and make sure that the needful are being done.
Next question.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, with your permission, I shall reply to this question. I'm informed by the Municipal City Council of Port Louis that the strip of road between Diego Garcia Street and Boulevard Victoria Street, as well as from Royal Street to Mariaman Temple Street, are non-classified roads. Thus, the maintenance of the above-mentioned road strips fall under the responsibility of the City Council. I wish to highlight the fact that a site visit was carried out by officers of the City Council of Port Louis on the 20th of May 2022, and it was observed that the above named street are damaged and requires resurfacing. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the strip of road between Diego Garcia Street and Boulevard Victoria Street, the contractor of the Central Water Authority has completed the pipeline work, and by mid of August 2022, a complete reinstatement of the road will be undertaken. Concerning the reinstatement of the road from Royal Street to Mariam and Temple Street, the National Development Unit has informed that a consultant has been appointed to look into the implementation of the drain work project along Queen Street, Etienne Pelleroy Street, Franklin Temple Street, up to Mariam and Temple Street. A first presentation has already been done as an NDU by the consultant in the presence of all stakeholders, including inhabitants of those above mentioned streets. Moreover, the consultant is working on the drain network project based on some additional input received by various stakeholders, including the inhabitants. Upon completion of the drain network, the whole strip of the road will be completely reinstated. As far as the strip of road from Royal Street to corner Queen Street and Franklin Temple Street is concerned, the reinstatement of this part of the road is being considered by the NDU as well.
Next question.
B882. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, with your permission, I'll shall reply to this parliamentary question. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as to part A of the question, I'm advised that since the start of commercial operations, Metro Express Limited has recorded a ridership of over 8 million as at mid-July 2022. It is to be noted here that since the start of operations of the Metro Express from Phase 1, from Port Louis to Roselle, and Phase 2, from Roselle to Quatre-Bornes, Metro Express Limited has faced numerous challenges with the imposition of 2 national lockdowns from 20 March 2020 to 15 May 2020 and 10th March 2021 to 30th April 2021. Travel restrictions and sanitary measures due to the prevailing COVID-19 situation and the work-from-home policy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as regard to Part B of the question, I'm informed by the Metro Express Limited that the total revenue obtained from the sales of tickets as at date amounts to 166,276,804. As the House is aware, free travel scheme is provided to bus operators and the light rail operators for the free conveyance of senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and students to ease their mobility. In this connection, Metro Express Limited has received an amount of around 30 million under the free travel scheme to date. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in respect to Part C of the question, loan facilities have been provided to Metro Express Limited to enable the latter to meet its operational expenses. A breakdown of the quantum of the loan as at date by financial year is as follows. 2019-2020, 220 million, 2020-2021, 380 million, 2021-2022, 300 million, and 2022-2023, 110 million. As per the term and conditions, the loan have a repayment period of 10 years and a grace period of 3 years. According to the current trend, as Metro Express Limited is extending its operation, the loan taken by Metro Express Limited has decreased by around 63% from last financial year, that is 2021-2022, to financial year 2022-2023. After the completion of the whole alignment from Port Louis to Cupid, it is expected that operation of Metro Express Limited would be sustainable and Metro Express would not require additional loan facilities from government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, attention should be drawn to the fact that Metro Express Limited, as opposed to the other public transport operators, has to incur major operation costs relating to the inherent nature of its business as regard the light rail, truck, furniture, infrastructure, and systems. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes, can I know from the Honourable Minister how many passengers are actually paying their fares?
How many? Sorry.
I didn't get it myself. Repeat your question.
Can I know from the Honourable Minister how many passengers are actually paying their fares? Because we know that old people are not paying, children are not paying.
On a daily basis, you mean?
So my question is, how many actually paying their fares? By passengers?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I've said there is a ridership of 8 million, and I don't have this information.
Regarding advertising, can the Honourable Minister tell us what is being done to boost up the revenue and advertising?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Honourable member will appreciate that I'm not a substantive minister, and the question that has been put clearly states the information requested I've already given. Now, if there is information not pertaining to my question, it will be difficult for me to answer.
The Honourable Minister, give us a breakdown. If you don't have it now, you can give us later. A breakdown of expenses, including the amount paid to workforce.
Well, I'll convey to the substantive minister. I think the Honourable Minister, the member should come with a substantive question requesting that information.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, can the Honourable Minister confirm to the House that they are not going to have an increase in fares? I know you can't answer it now, but can you pass it to the Minister and then we can have a reply for an increase?
I'll reply to the question, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Next question, Honourable William.
Yes, B-stroke 883, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Municipal Council of Parlement that an outline planning permission application was received from Al Harmony Limited Apartment Project on the 20th of September 2021 for the construction of a residential building at ground and 5 upper floors with 37 residential units. Following public notification, objections were received from the inhabitants of Willoughby and Bernard de Saint-Pierre streets in Cartremont against the outline planning permission application, and a hearing was held on the 24th of November 2021. The application was subsequently rejected by the Permit and Business Monitoring Committee of the 24th of November 2021 on ground that, as per outline planning scheme for the Municipal Council of Cartremont, there should be a presumption against application for tall building of more than 4 floors, that is ground plus 3 upper floors, in the area where the subject site is located. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm further informed that the developer submitted an application for a building and land use permit on the 22nd December 2021 for the construction of a residential building at ground plus 3 upper floor with 34 residential units. Objections were again received from the inhabitant of Willoughby and Bernard Saint-Pierre Street in Cartremont against application. However, the Permit and Business Monitoring Committee, as its sitting of the 29th of December 2021, decided not to schedule a hearing in view of the fact that no public notification is required for the construction of a residential building at ground plus 3 floors, with the committee, and the committee had already taken cognizance of their grievance. Nevertheless, the committee agreed that a letter be addressed to the objectors, informing them that the ground of objection would be taken into consideration when the application for HAL Harmony Limited would be processed. This BLUP application was set aside, given that the applicant did not submit additional information and documents and amended plan within the prescribed delay. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Municipal Council of Cartremont has informed that the developer submitted a fresh application for that is second one for building and land use permit on the 11th of February 2022 for the construction of a residential building at ground, first, second, and third floor, having 34 units and the construction of a boundary wall. Objection was received anew from inhabitants of Willoughby and Bernard Sapier Street in Catrabon, but the PBMC decided not to hold a hearing in view of the decision taken for the previous BLUP application. However, the ground of objection were considered by the PBMC. The latter also considered the clearance which the application had obtained regarding the project from the following authorities: the Traffic Management and Road Safety Unit, Wastewater Management Unit, Central Water Authority, and Central Electricity Board. These clearances have taken care of the main grievance of the reverends. Consequently, the application was approved by the Permit and Building Monitoring Committee on the 9th of March 2022 with conditions, as mentioned by the different authorities, as required by the different authorities.
Supplementary?
Yes, Vice Prime Minister, thank you very much for the reply. Now, I'm sure the MPs, sitting on the government bench have also raised this issue. And it's an issue that has been flogged, and taken up with the Municipal Council of Belrose and Catrabon. Now, all the MPs, I'm sure are of agreement that 34 units are far too many. And this is an area where there is a huge traffic, and two well-known colleges are not far from each other. Can I ask the Minister to impress upon the Municipal Council of Belrose of Catrabon to revisit and to make sure that the project meets also to a large extent meet the needs of the people? Otherwise, it's going to be a very cumbersome project, and the protests will be carried on.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I take note of what the Honourable Gentleman has just mentioned. As I mentioned, all the clearance has been obtained by the different authorities, but I take it there has been some protests, in fact, at different time. And I think I'll, as a request of the Honourable Member and my colleague from the Minister, I'm going to take it up again with the Municipal Council and to see whether they can review the situation and see what can be done to alleviate the problem caused by this particular project.
Thank you. Next question. I understand this question has been transferred to the Prime Minister.
B885.
Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, with utmost respect to this House, until this member tenders her unconditional apologies to this entire nation, she has no moral rights to sit in this House.
Order. 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 I'm in no mood to ask anybody to go home. Order, please. There's a rule. I have to go by the rule. You all know it. If you have supplementary, you can try to put it.
Malheureusement, c'est le peuple qui n'a pas droit à ces réponses, Monsieur le Vice-président. C'est le peuple qui est perdant aujourd'hui.
Order. 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 Order, please. Order. 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 Should I raise the session? I understand you don't have any question. No. It's not about her, it's about me. You do not have, do you have, don't you have, please? I just have to go by the standing order. No. Order. Tea break. We'll break for 5 minutes.